Are you seeing anything on? Okay, so what's happening is we are and we're streaming. We just can't see it here. I believe, can you see? Well, I've been talking here, so you should be able to hear. Yeah. So we're as set as we're going to be. This is, unfortunately, the screen is probably going to go on and off. So we can put this, it won't mute. We're doing last week as well. It won't do, I don't know why.
Trustee Rich. Staff interventions.
Sean Smith, the Board of Education.
Executive Director. We can be part of the library. Service. Happy order is always this other time. So you have.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Karen Carmelli. I live on Greenway in Albany, and I apologize. I will have to run as soon as I'm done with this comment. I have another child who's like circling the parking lot with my husband right now. But I felt very important that it was very important for me to come here with my daughter tonight to express my concerns who's running for one of the trustee positions, and that is Michelle Greenblatt. Looking at Michelle Greenblatt's Facebook page and the posts that are very much against the First Amendment and supportive of book bans is really disturbing to me. And I want the public to know that we have a candidate who's running and holds those positions. I was here at the candidate forum last week in this room where Michelle Greenblatt talked about making the library a welcoming space to all of the people of Albany, and especially helping immigrants work through their citizenship applications, which is completely incompatible with her Facebook posts that are celebrating ICE detentions of anti-genocide protesters, student protesters from Columbia and Tufts University. I don't understand how this will be a welcoming and safe space for our undocumented members of the community if we have a board member who supports ICE detaining and kidnapping people off of our street for exercising their First Amendment. She also has a post on her Facebook page that that it was a petition that was shared back in February asking her followers to sign this petition banning a book called P is for Palestine. It's a children's book from public libraries in Virginia. And so P is for Palestine is a book for children that explains the history, the culture, the traditions of Palestinian culture. And this is something that she supported. She asked for people to ban. So I'm very scared. We're living in very scary times at the moment where we know that book bans are coming our way, that funding for public libraries is being cut, for the DEI programs are being cut everywhere. And I depend on Albany Public Library to bring my kids here so that we can access children's books that expose my kids to different cultures, different religions, different traditions. And I want to make sure that this is a safe haven where we can continue getting that information. And I feel like Michelle Greenblatt is interested in stifling those kinds of books and that kind of information. So I'm just very concerned, and I hope that people do not vote for Michelle Greenblatt on May 20th. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mehak Jamil. I'm a resident of Albany's 6th Ward. I, like Karen, will also have to be very rude and leave after comments. I have 4 kids at home, and 6:15 to 8 o'clock is danger zone for bath and bedtime. I'm an attorney, I'm a mother of 4, and I'm also here today because I'm deeply concerned about the potential election of Michelle Greenblatt to this board. Not to echo exactly what Karen said, but libraries are places of learning, freedom, open dialogue, and understanding, yet Michelle's views and actions demonstrate a clear disregard for these principles. On her public Facebook page, she's posted hateful, fear-mongering content celebrating the detention of activists by ICE, supporting calls to ban a Palestinian children's book from a public library in Virginia, and labeling pro-Palestinian advocates as terrorist plants. Over the past several months, her public feed has been consumed by inflammatory references to jihadists, claims that the Democratic Party has been hijacked by Islamists. And this is not just a difference of opinion. It is a pattern of rhetoric that really weaponizes fear, spreads misinformation, and dehumanizes my community. Actively fuels hate and discrimination, and really, I think, furthers the already skyrocketing wave of anti-Muslim sentiment across our nation. And at a time when we need leadership that heals and unites, what I have seen of Michelle's divisive language, it really seems to just drive us further apart. I want to be clear that this is not about politics. We have seen a difference in politics over this issue over the past year and a half, but this is about protecting the mission of our libraries. A library trustee has a responsibility to safeguard access to diverse perspectives and uphold the First Amendment. And it seems like a vote for Michelle would be a vote for censorship and hateful rhetoric and a direct threat to the principles the city stands for. Like Karen, I depend on the Albany Public Libraries for my 4 children, all of whom are under the age of 7. And in the long, dark Albany winter, there's not a lot of other places to go. So we use these libraries very regularly. So tonight, of course, I'm speaking on behalf of the Muslim community here in the Capital District, but also as a private citizen and a mother. And I certainly would not be comfortable bringing my 4 minority young kids to a library system overseen by somebody who promotes this kind of hate. So thank you for the opportunity, and I hope to engage with you all further on this.
Thank you. Yes, yes. Okay. And last time, all I can send you that item. That's fine.
Just stop. We don't have a contract with Overdrive. They're a vendor for our content, so it's our people on the books. So each of the charges that you see for Overdrive represent a number of purchases. But so for in a 30-day, they charge. So they charge for each separate item purchase, they don't put one. It's separate titles on a bill, so our savings department orders multiple titles. It's similar to the invoices that we see from Taylor. So on one invoice, it's the number of purchases that represent purchase licenses. And other parts. So National Grid is broken up on. National Grid, it is broken up by branch. I'm not sure how that's represented within these slides exactly. It is. Checks. One. Yep. Okay. I figured that.
Interaction for the board. I to accept the consent of the second. Motion is trustee Welch, second by trustee Murphy. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Yes, that receive the expenditures to the trust. Thousand last March, and so expense salary. On.
Just also says the increase in salary expense, I know that raises were passed, but is it also reflecting better staff retention and the vacancies?
Yes, this is one of those lines that does vary over the course of the year, and sometimes you'll see more paired with where we were last year because of vacancies, and sometimes it has to do with when the merit increases kick in. I would invite either the treasurer or the finance director to say more on that, but I.
Sorry, Mrs. Talmadge. So,
Well, you'll definitely hear more about some positions that are right now to the EDG report and the executive director reports. So we just see.
I was like, that's kind of fresh. Anyway, I was just kind of curious how the expenditure. Typical is,
Yeah, because that is actually. Supplies. Patients. It's a bill that I believe we pay in one lump. Sum. Yes.
So it's not your seat. There's one thing. George. Seems to. It's.
additional question going to. Move on to committee on report and trustees reporting out on library agent or on the event. There's not much to lose now. So last week we had on Tuesday budget presentation in its form. Exciting and good. However, on Monday, I went to Arbor Fest. I'm on my gods, so everybody can see. But it was a lot of fun. It was like this group of people, and I just want to shout out like how much these programs mean to folks. Because I was sitting next to this dude who, and I've been this test. But she's like, well, have you been to this program? Have you been to that program? And I go here on these days. And she's like, no, program guides. And she was just so excited to share how much she gets out of the library and to want to share that with me. And I was really touched, and I want to share that for everybody that, we may not be hearing on the comment or something, but what APL is doing means a lot.
Uh, so I attended my neighborhood association at the Pine Hills branch. So that was great and had a good time with our meeting in the library. So thank you so much to APL for that as well. I was not able to attend the forum last week, but I did watch it online. So I do recommend that if plan on voting week from today, that you do watch the forum and budget presentation. That was last week. It was live streaming on the Albany Public Library YouTube page.
Trustee Ross. It's. Probably 40 minutes and we're to the chair, trustee Steve and trustee Marlon, will bring out the committee did and I see in the flow. The way everything is set up and so, yeah, it was really good. You can definitely get a sense of it's from the forum for the.
Thank you. To just share the thanks. The thing that goes smoothly because of the APL staff, because they have that minutes. So, be great, yes.
Yeah, I will share out, in addition to attending for, that trustee list, if she is to trustee Lisinski and her committee and all the, candidates who showed up. But one other event I'll call attention to was, beginning of the month. Capital Street, Walkable Albany and Albany Voices of Information hosted a sixth ward candidate forum for those performances. An event here in this room we're meeting at tonight to talk about issues related to pedestrian infrastructure and public transportation, safe biking communities here. This is just right across the street from the library. There's a lot of multimodal transportation needs and interesting questions about accessibility. So it's I'm going to reiterate the value of all the public library in our communities, as Lisinski mentioned earlier. I think it's wonderful that, and Trustee Rush mentioned all of the library serves a community meeting space and supports the other nonprofits in the area. So well attended events and see what happens in the election as we move towards it, but it's fun. Any other trustees before that? All right, we'll go to executive committee report. Turn it over to Trustee West.
Much so. So the executive committee at 30th. The notes are the minutes are actually board notes. We had a couple of items. Later on the agenda today. Subscription. Session to discuss the services. I said there were two items that will be discussed for hours.
We'll go to the elected finals. Our first of Washington at Bench, we had two items of this. They were informational. The first of which is automatic and general awareness. Our library extension from checking payments to the electronic fund transfer payments for software services. It's an retirement accounts. This change is beneficial for two particular reasons. First, it eliminates the possibility that our checks are lost in the mail, as you see on our check register. Avoiding checks is just. And second, this also just modernizes our library and processes and help us leverage technology to have pages. Our second informational item pertains to 5-year financial planning. And I'm just going to read the response. In response to current budget deficit projections and concern about continuing on the fund balance to fund operations, library staff determined to change our library's fund balance policy to establish appropriate balances across the 3 fund balances in fiscal year 26. This is a recommendation that complies with our comptroller's report. And to implement this change down the road, staff are going to later on request our board's approval to transfer funds between accounts. And the earliest this change can be made is after our audit is finalized, which is close to the end of the calendar year. And another sort of teaser is that the board of trustees should also expect to see a budget modification proposal for again, an informational item to action on later on, but questions, I'm sure, Andrea or Adam and questions now. All right, there are questions on that item?
It's not on the agenda, but I'm also going to sound on us. So nominating committee is tired. But we have made it, questions, candidate forum, and meetings happens on May 20th. And getting ready to welcome two new trustees. And then for Upper Hudson, I wanted, the executive director for Upper Hudson, Timber, in this table is, he has in fact retired, officially done. I want to mention that there is a new executive director starting June 2nd. His name is Trustees. He has history here at APL, and is coming as the director from the library.
Can I mention a couple more things?
Sure.
So first of all, I had the opportunity to attend to Burke's farewell, as did some library staff as well as trustees, and we all thanked him for his service to the whole Upper Hudson library system. Looking forward to welcoming Trustees. I'm starting to think that you have to work at APL in order to become the executive director of Upper Hudson, because Tim Burke also spent time here at APL. And I also wanted to mention that the Upper Hudson Library System annual celebration is coming up on June 11th, but we're asking that board members RSVP for that by May 30th. Melanie is coordinating our RSVPs, so please look at her. And we submitted 2 programs for the awards that Hudson routinely annually gives out. One award is the Adult Program of the Year. We nominated our Local History Walks program. And the other nominee from APL is Bilingual Storytime programs. We partnered with RISE and with actually with RISE for both, and offered a Farsi English and an Arabic English story time for children in those languages. So that's a series that we hope to continue, and I'm really proud of both of these programs. We'll see what happens. It's always a surprise, but we should learn by Thursday.
Anyone have any upcoming committee meetings?
Nominate.
So for those watching at home, see all of these materials in Board Docs, which is the system that organizes the board's documents, public documents. And if you look at the monthly report for May, which covers the month of April, you'll see on the front page a beautiful picture of our entire staff Development Day 2025. Right in this room and throughout this branch, we held events all day, sessions all day for staff to learn together. The focus of the day had to do with people living with disabilities, like, and the keynote speakers were Sean Lemieux from the New York State Talking Books and Braille Library, and Daniel Sturdivant, the owner of Living Autism Out Loud. Bless you. We also covered a lot of internal projects that we're addressing in the library, and it's just a really special, unique opportunity when all 7 branches are closed on a usually the third Thursday in April. And it's a unique chance for all of us to be together. So I was happy with this year's results, and I want to thank Assistant Director Melanie Metzger for capably steering the Planning Committee for Staff Development Day once again this year. Another highlight for April was hearing news from Capital District Library Council that we received a $3,200 regional collections grant for the digitization of College of St. Rose yearbooks. So that's a really wonderful project that we cannot wait to get into. It's also going to offer an internship experience for a lucky student out there. So that's going to be great. Moving into administration and outreach activities updates, I want to highlight the numerous community reports and budget presentations that I've been giving and that several staff have been giving throughout the city. The questions that have come up at those meetings are usually of a concerned nature about what's happening the Institute for Museum and Library Services funding on the federal level. So there's a lot of concern, general concern about funding being cut for library and museum services in this country. And I always take time to note that while we do not at APL directly depend on those federal funds, we do indirectly depend on them and benefit from them for a variety of different initiatives. It's definitely not a time to take libraries and museums for granted as institutions that serve our communities. Thanks to a connection from Trustee Rush, I met with Owusu Anane for the Madison Theater at the Madison Theater regarding a potential partnership on for our pass program. So I'm looking forward to moving that forward and hopefully connecting our users with Madison Theater passes. I want to also note in Friends and Foundation of APL News that Dre Carter resigned as president of FFAPL last month, and he stated, "It has been a privilege to serve alongside such an impactful board. I am proud of what we've accomplished together in support of the Albany Public Library and the communities it serves." So I just want to take a moment to thank Dre for his service to the Friends and Foundation of Albany Public Library. And he oversaw our entire centennial year celebration. And I just want to say thanks wherever you are, Trey. Thank you. Under finance, I'll actually pass it over to Adam Stump. We moved the finance section to a different place in this agenda to put more of a focus as we move into this new fiscal year and our new financial landscape. So Adam, would you like to talk about the interest credit?
Spread. These savings are actually just everything you're both actually. So the tax change that chart
That's good news, yeah. And we also received word from the Division of Library Development that we're receiving the 90% award for our Washington Avenue roof reconstruction or our roof replacement project, excuse me. So that's more good news that you'll hear more about. Our head of public safety is getting a lot of positive attention these days. He was invited to speak at not one, but two different libraries for their staff development days in the comprehensive library systems. Excited to support Matt in those efforts, doing his de-escalation training thing and sharing good information with our fellow libraries in the area about managing relationships with patrons, especially difficult relationships. I want to call out two upcoming programs, one all about Albany with Jack McEnany, and the other is Get to Know Pinkster. It's a great book and reading craft at How. We're really, as you'll remember from the community survey that we did, we heard a lot about wanting to see more local history-focused programming, so we're excited to present these two programs among others. Under community engagement, very proud to say that we saw the conclusion of two internships within the library. One was Gretchen Graff with the CMS department, our collection management services department, and the other Jay, who assisted with collection maintenance and tech and program help. So just want to shout out our awesome volunteers and also shout out our community engagement department for making those internships happen in over the course of several months. So we're looking forward to bringing on new interns. And it cannot go without being noted that both of these interns stated at the end of their internships that they are interested in working in a public library in the future. Maybe this one, so we can hope. I did want to call out a couple other highlights. The Programs and Partnerships Department did a wonderful job partnering with the City School District. First Friday student art shows at Arbor Hill, West Hill, Bach, and Delaware branches, which this was a big expansion from last year when we only did a student art show at Bach. And I also want to credit them the Spring Into Reading Challenge, which saw some great engagement during Spring Break Week and leading into Spring Break Week. We continue to see good success with our Buy Nothing community giveaways that happen at Arbor Hill West Hill. And at the Delaware branch, we had the first great Delaware duck hunt in April, where patrons of all ages were invited to hunt for small rubber ducks hidden all around the Delaware branch. There's nothing quite like a good hide and seek contest. For Earth Day, Hal hosted a flower pot craft program. And finally, I wanted to, under North Albany, I wanted to call out the fact that our branch manager, Hannah Riccatelli, resigned in April after a decade of service to APL. And Hannah is a fabulous human being. She's unique within APL. She was a very magnetic person, very dynamic programming librarian, very good at her job of connecting with the community. And we were fairly heartbroken to see her go. She did move away. She moved out of town. We wish her well. But she really worked so hard to establish strong ties with North Albany Middle School and Neighborhood Association and other community organizations in North Albany. So I just wanted to note that that change in our team. And let's see, just some points here. Under collection management services, we continue to look at ways to rein in some of the hopeless spending we're seeing. It's a very popular service, but it is sort of a unique service among collection services because it is basically instant gratification, a cost per circ model, which basically results in some spending that we can't predict, and that we always like to predict our spending. So we're working with Hoopla to tweak the purchasing process and some of the changes that we can make to keep costs down, but that continues to be a bit of a concern. And it's something that a lot of libraries in Upper Hudson are also struggling with. That service is popular, and it's just hard to control spending.
I was just gonna chime in that I wasn't at the last board meeting, and the Upper Hudson meeting that I would have reported on at that one included a bunch about how the different libraries in Upper Hudson are struggling with handling. So backing up what Anna says.
So you'll hear more about it, I'm sure. Finally, we have decided to make a change to the staffing at North Albany, and I just wanted to announce that. We are not going to replace our full-time librarian 2 at North Albany. That's the aforementioned Hannah. We're actually replacing Hannah with 2 part-time positions, because what we have seen at North Albany is that having just 3 positions there makes it really hard to cover the branch's services in an adequate way with some redundancy. It is also not the model that we see at our other branches. We created the L2 position for consistency across our branches, but we really struggle to maintain adequate coverage at North. So we're deliberately making this change, and we have support among the department heads to support and oversee North Albany with that different staffing arrangement. So just note that. And that concludes my report. Highlights.
I think the question of the 45,000, uh, I guess you have that.
We're including it in the community report. So we only learned about this tax credit, like, I would say last week. So we've incorporated it into the community report. All it really did was change the tax impact sheet that we share on budget site as well as you know, anywhere else in, that voters are seeing budget information. So I'm glad that it was good news, you know, that it lowers the tax impact across the board. But we didn't learn about it in time to really, and you know, it's not insignificant, but it is also a huge savings. It's kind of nice to see, but and we we're expecting it, but we're talking about it now. Doing the community.
I have one other question to, this is just a little bit off, that's what I'm sure, that the Washington Avenue Library, that's the branch manager
Yes,
position, okay,
and we just filled that position.
oh wait, okay,
Yes, that's
yes.
our new Washington Avenue branch manager starts on Monday.
My question is not an old wording question. So last year you shared the list with us. Do we get to get the playlist again this year?
Yes, let me make a note of that. It's definitely a good one.
Trustee ones.
So, we specified what we would like to see out of the grant, which is the digitization of those yearbooks. We're gonna have to pay an intern to help us with that project, so that is part of the costs. And I could definitely get you a finer breakdown. But
Questions on director's report? Otherwise, we'll move on to next Thursday.
So I wanted to point out that our year-to-date computer use is trending slightly higher overall than most locations over last year. We are again reporting the adjusted door count numbers in that separate document that you'll see next to the statistics, and we're seeing a continued overall increase in door count from last year. So that's positive. We'll take it. We also saw the highest programming numbers in the last 12 years at West Hill and at Miller. And that had a lot to do with the school art showcase events that were held at each of those branches. So those are some statistics highlights for you. Continue to trend. And instant reports are down as or instant violence. Different. See that right under 6.2, so it's 6.3 in the agenda. And I share this, this is produced by Upper Hudson, and it just kind of gives you an overall picture of what Albany Public Library is looking like from January to March in terms of our ebooks, audiobooks, our periodicals, in terms of the periodicals that you can see through Libby, and the video and music that you can enjoy. So as you can see, audiobooks continues to dominate slightly. Actually, I shouldn't say dominate. Audiobooks continues to be almost neck and neck with ebooks in terms of how popular those formats are within APL. And that trend also kind of lines up with the system-wide trends. So it's always interesting to see those side-by-side comparisons. Any questions about the digital content circle board?
If my math is correct, our usage for just our 7 branches
Mhm.
out of 36 total in Hudson is 1/6. Kind of looking at the totals and that. So that's pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah, that is accurate, and it is, we have a lot to be proud of here. We've got a lot of heavy users of digital content in Albany. Reasons to continue to look to hopefully invest more in digital content in the future.
We are the largest library in Columbus. So while we may have a big percent, if you think about like rates for like how big are we? I haven't run it, but just throwing out things.
Trustee Bliss, I think I've asked. Digital content, meaning, it looks like there's there. That is true, and that's because digital content is so expensive. So whereas we can afford to buy, you know, copy of. Let's use the example of James Patterson. So we'll have, you know, James Patterson books going back, you know, we don't have all of James Patterson stretch. Is Robert's, yeah, the physical book will stay on the shelf, you know, as long as we would like to see it there. But these digital copies, they come and go, licenses disappear. So we can't afford to just collect all of the titles, especially if they're not as popular. So we try to really spend according to what patrons are demanding. Like we basically have a spending or a purchase ratio. So if we see like a certain number of holds on a title, we will purchase an additional copy of that title so that we can hopefully satisfy people without really long wait time. There are still going to be really long wait times for stuff, but it's really, you know, it's difficult to build the kind of digital library that we really want, just because our digital content, you know, budget is not infinite, and we have to be really the expense of this type. So we do our best, but it's far from perfect.
And then with the hoopla, we do have audiobooks as well, and that we have access to their entire catalog of material. We don't purchase our individual titles, so it's hoopla, and it's people we are charged for checkout. Charged for that, so we kind of
And the content available. So, the top amount per types. Right now, we're at 299 as a spending limit per type. And that does restrict people contents to a certain pool. If we were willing to raise that cap to like $4.99, we'd see a lot more content available for people in Hoopla, but we would also quickly run through all of our funds. That's the trick.
Unfinished business, beach drive.
So you'll see this contract in documents, and it's not changing. Like we've had this contract for a couple of years now. I do want to ask the board to provisionally approve this contract. I did want to see 2 small changes to our agreement with CDTA, and I'm in talks with CDTA about these changes. You'll see under section on page 2, under free compensation, right now, CDTA is providing us with 20 hours of drive credit per month, but we're not, as an organization, using that drive credit each month. So I would like to convert that to basically a rental fee, a cash compensation. So that's what I'm working on. The electricity charges are also something we need to follow up with CDTA on, as we've fallen a little behind with charging for the kilowatt hours that the cars demand. And I also want to note that we do receive a few $100s per month from in the way of people paying to charge their EVs at Delaware. So anyone can charge their EV. The first 4 hours of charging, my understanding is that those first 4 hours are free, and beyond that, it is a cost. So we see some income from that source. So I would ask for a motion to provisionally approve this renewal with the understanding that I'm still working out the compensation details today. I have a question. Just explain. I think it's that. Can you explain the 20 hours of credit in the scholarship program? Yeah, so that was the original compensation that was negotiated for this agreement, and what I would like to do is see that converted to just a cash credit to APL, not a drive credit. So we haven't been using those drive credits. Like, our staff doesn't use that car. I think that was the original intent of having drive credit each month, and yeah, we just haven't been using that credit like I guess the people who negotiated this stop points. So I've asked ETA to give us a monetary proposal interest compensation. So that's what we do. So this is what we said. Thank you. Thank you.
Questions or action?
I said this drive with relationship.
Question? Then not second the motion, proceed to succeed.
Thank you. So it came to my attention kind of after I put this together for you that it is not technically necessary to decommission equipment if we're not able to resell it or repurpose it and donate it to another organization. But it's still best practice when you have assets that contain data that needs to be wiped and so forth, to have a formal decommission. So I worked with the IT manager on this memo for you, and I want to note that many of these devices that you see in this list were used well past their useful life. So, way past warranty, way past. We're on a better replacement schedule, and it's unlikely that we'll see a decommission request like this one again, because we've moved into a better and more responsible replacement era for our IT equipment. So it will always be our goal to donate or to resell decommissioned equipment when it's possible and practical, but it's just not the case that these items are eligible for that. So invite any questions, but we did get in touch with a few different companies that do that reselling, and none were interested.
What is the updated the system with the IT manager about? To make sure that stuff appears.
Well, we have a replacement plan now, and we have a 5-year IT plan, which we didn't always have. So I would actually love to bring our IT manager here before you do cyclically have department heads come and speak with the board about plans for their department or their purchasing. So I think it would be great for you to hear from him about his plans, but he's got a lot of very, very good plans in place to make sure that we're secure, that we are protected, that all of our equipment is protected adequately. And yeah, I think it would really be useful for the board to listen. So we'll
Action for this evening.
I move to approve decommissioning of responsible disposal of IT equipment.
Yes. Also get discussion. Students.
So for the items that absolutely, yes, there is. So then it's the items that we did decommission here, but it is that stored somewhere so that maybe this is when you pull down to say, okay, well, just this amount down under, we have this and yes, we do maintain inventory lists in our IT department that are safe and secure for any future auditing that happens. And yeah, glad I can answer yes to that. Thank you.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor, the second to the decommission and disposal of IT equipment. All in favor? Motion passes. Thanks to Jensen for assisting with the vote. All right, item 8.2 strategic plan extension.
So we met with the executive committee of the board, and that was and we talked about how the current strategic plan runs through the end of the calendar year, and the reason for that has to do with the previous fiscal year for the library, but also the calendar year. And so this change is basically to bring our strategic plan and planning in line with the beginning of the fiscal year. So with this shifted timeline, we'll have plenty of time to plan well, the board will have time to appoint the ad hoc strategic planning committee, and the committee will then have time to develop the RFP, release the RFP, do all of that, the work that it takes to get consultant hired, and then execute the process of strategic planning, which is another months-long process that involves focus groups and surveying and interviews with stakeholders and all of those good components that inform our new 3-year plan. So I've outlined a very rough timeline for developing and adopting the new plan, and you can see that here. I don't think this is too wildly off what would happen for us. So I would just invite you to review this and ask any questions that you have about the process or the plans to extend.
The committee appointed by the executive board, is that of trustees or is it of APL staff or is it a mix?
It's a mix, so it'll definitely be at least 3 trustees. And my hope is to have a department head from the library staff, in addition to myself.
Thanks. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this item is something to do with the motion by the executive committee to extend the strategic plan. So, so you guys on this item, thank you. Second. I feel like I'm doing secondary tonight. I'll go ahead and continue. Trustee Lisinski on second. Second to extend the current strategic plan. 6, discussion.
Right. You both are all in favor? The next item is board document storage. It's another item that is coming to.
So the background on this is that we have a subscription to Board Docs. Board Docs is the platform that you're all using right now. If you're watching from home, maybe looking at the board materials on Board Docs. It is a subscription-based service, and we're looking to potentially pay $14,000 for the renewal of this service, but my recommendation and the recommendation of the executive committee is to move away from Board Docs because the board hasn't used the full functionality of the application. The application was developed with like automatic voting or digital voting, and it proved to be a little bit more trouble than it was worth for the board at the time that I came on anyway. I think it may have been more useful during COVID potentially, but in any event, it's a very pricey platform for basically just holding a bunch of documents that could also be held in SharePoint, which is our Microsoft. We already pay for that subscription. So a lot of organizations, including public agencies and government agencies, also use Microsoft Office 365 SharePoint to house their documents. So it's not anomalous with what already happens in that world that we're in, the public documents world. So we have that umbrella license that we already have for all of our document storage needs in the library. And it would also reduce the number of applications that the board has to use to conduct your day-to-day business as well as in for you all. We had a few different items to consider: the migration of the files, the board packets, how those would be constructed. We have a team within the staff, including Gibson Pill, our IT manager, Erica, all of the people who are involved in developing and figuring out how to do this migration are working on plans for meeting the needs of the board and the public for access to these documents. So, the process will change a little bit for you all in terms of how you use the documents, but they'll all be there in basically the same order that they're in now in terms of, we'll go to see the agenda, there will be links within the meeting agenda to the materials. It'll be probably easier than Board Docs. So I say that with a lot of hope and optimism, but we do have some really good plans in place to make this change and to support it on our end. So yeah, I would invite any questions that you have about that. We're excited to save some money and make things easier for the board.
I don't have any questions, but it's one last thing, and then there's discussion where you find out everything's available for the agenda. You won't log in to a separate thing, it'll be much smoother. So that's smart and saves a big chunk of money.
So the program license we have covers this entirely. It's just pure savings.
It's pure savings. It's staff time. It's a little bit of staff time. So I suppose I should say that, yes. But the staff time is, I think, well worth the savings.
And this SharePoint will be available to the public. Everyone can see the documents.
Yeah, I think it'll be much simpler for the public to access as well, because basically when someone goes to the leadership page for the library, which actually we're probably going to be Board of Trustees, because it's a little bit better descriptor for that page. And you'll just see the agendas for the upcoming meetings, and the links will be right there. It'll just be very simple. We're looking at a couple different models, how we could arrange that on the screen, but it should be super super clear. And the committee information would then be contained in the general updates that are monthly, right? So all the committee report outs would happen within the larger monthly agendas and wouldn't have separate committee meeting links, you know what I mean?
I'm just curious, what are some of the organizations that you should? Well, one is,
Yeah, so, I state parks are agencies and often agencies that are like parties that well, it's government.
If I'm not mistaken too with SharePoint, they're all using Microsoft operating systems on your computers, correct? So that you should be able to have like an actual just folder for things too. So you can put them in it and it automatically like on SharePoint insert folders, which may actually make it so that this whole process of setting it up isn't like terrible versus like having to upload stuff, like actually upload it onto Word Docs, which is something that you have to do now.
Yeah, that's exactly. Right now, you will see the documents, the Word PDF, and it'd be that same format. So instead of logging into the Word portal and seeing what you see now, you can see more clearly like public documents folder, and that's where you know to look for anything that's available for public view, including the meeting agenda, the upcoming meeting, the materials, etc.
Any other questions? All right, so there is a motion from executive committee on the floor to migrate to SharePoint and place board docs effective July 1st, 2025. Do I have a second?
Nice.
Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor? Great. This day passes.
Thank you. Look forward to supporting you all in this transition.
Our final item under new business is the quarterly board evaluation, which is, as most of you, I believe, have a paper copy. We do this obviously quarterly, sort of assess our performance and look to improve our functioning as a board. So the board members, if you would complete the board evaluation and that Erica has agreed tonight, or if you want to add additional comments, scan it and deliver it to Erica later on, but we all thrive with constructive criticism and feedback. So I encourage you to see this sort of the evaluation. Start.
Just wanna. Words that. I say.
I suspect we have no discussion, all in favor? After the meeting of the at 7:17, thank you everyone.